Hello students, Mr. John here with Chapter 18, Lesson 3. We're in Reconstruction, and Lesson 3 specifically is called The South During Reconstruction. How are they feeling about all this? Not real great, it turns out. This lesson is actually on the shorter end, so we have a little quiz, and then your Teen Biz assignment is today. So we'll move on to the Teen Biz after the quiz. Today's lesson is about life in the South, and it's a bit all over the place. You'll see what I mean by this little outline I've created. Lesson 3. Black people can vote and run for office. Yay, that's a good thing. But white Southerners don't like the black people or people from the North, and they call them mean names. Boo. The Klan. The Ku Klux Klan terrorizes Northerners and African Americans in the South. Boo. But we have schools in the South now. We didn't have schools in the South for the longest time. We've got schools now. For African American and white kids, so that's good. Yay! But also sharecropping sucks, which we'll learn about. So boo. So we're all over the place. So during the height of Reconstruction, African Americans were quite the political force. They voted and ran for office. It was a black vote that helped Republicans take control of the country and push the radical Republican agenda. They were a part of that. Remember when the last lesson we talked about some Southerners refused to vote and take part in the political process because they were super mad. For a short time, African Americans even held the majority of the lower chamber of the South Carolina state government. So that's pretty amazing accomplishment. Now, although in the grand scheme there weren't that many African Americans in office, they didn't hold too much political power. They did win a number of seats at the federal level. For example, between 1869 and 1800, 16 African Americans were voted into the House of Representatives, and 2 even made it to the Senate. Now we get to the maiden names. As you may well imagine, a good deal of the South was not happy with how things were going. Their slaves were voting, Republicans were running the show, and those pesky Northerners were moving into the South. The ex-Confederates had some names for folk they didn't like. For example, any Southerner that supported Republicans or otherwise pro-Union folk were referred to as scalawags, which is a silly name meaning scoundrel, worthless scoundrel, worthless rascal, or scruffy-looking nerf herder. I made that last part up. It's from Star Wars. It's from Han Solo. But a scalawag is someone who was considered to be a scoundrel or a troublemaker or something like that. So there was another group of folks the ex-Confederates didn't like. There were some Northerners that had moved into the South during Reconstruction. Many were like the teachers or business folk, just looking to help rebuild or start over. But some had some more nefarious intentions. Northern folks that moved south were eyed with suspicion and referred to as carpetbaggers. Named so because the cheap luggage of that era was made of carpet. They sort of look like in this little political cartoon down here. It was like a carpet, literally a carpet bag. That's why they were called carpetbaggers. Now, anytime there's hardship or suffering, even today, or an opportunity to make a buck off of some people who are down on their luck, there will be carpetbaggers there to fortune off their misery. This proves true even today, and you can still hear the word carpetbagger. For example, let's say Mr. Yund sells bottled water. Now I hear there's no water in Flint, Michigan, which is an actual event, the Flint water crisis. It's linked there. It's basically all icky. It's undrinkable. It's got lead in it. So let's say I'm a water salesman. I sell bottled water, and I go to Flint to sell my water, and then I jack up the prices because I know there's people there that need water. So I'm not from there, but I'm moving in there to take advantage of a situation. That would be an example of a carpetbagger. In that situation, I would be a carpetbagger. No one would like me. Now, in terms of these carpetbaggers in the South, most people weren't trying to take advantage of the South. They were just moving there. But there were certainly some people that were. Now, another problem in the South was corruption. Corruption is illegal or dishonest actions typically taken by some kind of government authority. They say absolute power corrupts absolutely, and you had very strong Republican majorities throughout the whole country, so it's not unbelievable that some of them pulled some shady business to make some money. There's no proof, however, that the corruption in the South was any worse than corruption in the North or corruption at any time in government. An example of corruption might be, let's say Mr. Yund is in the House of Representatives, and there is a rubber duck company that wants to build a factory in my district, but there's a government regulation that says no rubber duck factories in Pittsburgh. And so as a member of the House of Representatives, they come to me and they say, hey, if you can change this law, we'll give you a bunch of money. And so I go and I'm like, convince everyone else in the House of Representatives that this rubber duck factory would be a great idea, and then they hand me some money. That would be an example of corruption. Something like that, using your power to make gains in an illegal fashion. That's corruption. It's a word you're probably all pretty familiar with. Okay, resistance to Reconstruction. Now all these folks dropping mean names like Scalawag and Carpetbagger, they were into more than just name calling. You had organizations pop up, like the Ku Klux Klan. I'm sure everyone's heard of the KKK, who took violent measures to scare, hurt, or even kill African Americans and people that supported them. So you had folk pulling moves like refusing to give blacks store credit, or refusing to rent them or sell them land. You had this in addition to the actions of the KKK. They would say burn down schools for black children, or burn down the house of an African American who had registered to vote. Things like this, basically scaring them and terrorizing them into keeping the old status quo. Congress tried to make laws to curb the violence of the Klan, but most of these were pretty ineffective. Alright, directly following the Civil War, African Americans began to build their own schools. And then during the 1870s, state governments, these new state governments that were formed, started building schools in the South for both whites and blacks. Not many were integrated, meaning the black children and the white children went to school together. There wasn't a lot of that in the South. That didn't come until later. Sort of forced integration. Yeah, most schools that were built were either for white kids or black kids. Now, many African Americans wanted to own land to support their families and farm. That's pretty much what people did back then. It could be hard, of course, if no one wanted to sell to a black man. But some African Americans did, in fact, purchase land and have their own farmsteads. With help of, say, loans from the Freedmen's Bank. Remember we talked about the Freedmen's Bureau and how they had expanded powers. One of the powers they had was they had their own bank to make loans to African Americans, freed slaves, so that they could buy a farm. Many of the freed slaves, though, had to do what's called sharecropping. Sharecropping is basically working someone else's land and then giving them a portion of the crops. Oftentimes these landowners would take advantage of the African Americans by demanding too much of their crops, and they wouldn't have very much left over for themselves to eat and sell and make money. They were just taking too much of it. Too much of their profits were going to rent. As a result, a lot of freedmen actually went into a cycle of debt, and they ended up basically in a situation that wasn't much better than the slavery that they had escaped. So there are some good things going on and some bad things going on, and it's going to take time. So that's where we're ending at today. You have any questions, let me know. Your quiz is on the next page. Start off with the elusive true-false question. Woot woot. It's your 10-point quiz, and then your Teen Biz article is after that. It's the same as it always is. Our article today is called A Man of Courage. It's about a African-American university professor in the South right after the Civil War. Pretty bold move, sir. So that's it for the day. Tomorrow, actually, if you're on date, this is the 10th. So it will be Monday. Monday we'll pick up again with lesson 4. Alright, hey, have a good one.